What is up? We're back at it. Back at it one more time. Almost like I recorded these episodes back to back for some reason. Everything is exactly the same except it says this is about episode 2 of season 39 of the challenge. Interesting. Kind of weird. Shout out to Closure by Christina Gukas. I'll let you guys know. I talked about this in episode 1. It's still going on in episode 2 because they are exactly 10 minutes apart in terms of recording. This weekend I'm supposed to be in Aruba with my girlfriend and all my Quidditch friends, all my quad ball friends. But that didn't happen because the U.S. government did not issue me a passport after I requested it be renewed fast enough. So that was fun. For me personally, feels like an attack. Even though I know it's not. The U.S. government attacks a lot of people all at once. It never attacks individuals. Anyway, let's talk about the challenge. Episode 2, season 39. Things have gotten a little hairy for everybody who don't really have too many friends in the house. So let's take it from the top. Last time we were talking about this show, Big T had just defeated Jessica, the young lady who chose to play the sheep, a role that I don't think actually plays you into staying much longer in the game. Big T, kind of the originator of falling into the sheep role. A lot of people visually seeing that she's not much of a competitor and then kind of like letting her skirt around and stay there long enough overall, right? Like that's a real thing. That happened for her in her most recent season that she was in with CT as her partner, all that kind of stuff like that. She wins an elimination, eliminates Jessica, sends her home, smallest of the, I think she was like the smallest, physically smallest competitor on the show, and kind of played herself like that. I don't equate might to size. That's just me. People start to spew the usual bullshit after somebody who's not actually a good competitor wins an elimination. That's all I'm gonna say about that. Anyway, so Big T's back in the house. They immediately start plotting their next move because they know time is a ticking before things get worse. Before TJ shows up and he tells you something's getting a lot worse, they still they're still in the control phase of the game, which, by the way, you can identify by the name of the daily challenge, which I'll explain a little bit later on when we talk about what the name of this challenge is, which is in a couple of minutes. Anyway, we're still in the control phase of the game, so in case you forgot, this is the part of the game where there's $300,000 that's potential, that is on the line for the current or the future champion to be crowned later. You will get $300,000. There's a potential in this phase to add money to the challenge. Now, the last challenge that they did and absolutely failed at, Whole Control, $50,000, no money. Pass, fail type situation. Now, what's coming up a little bit later on, a little different. Let's look at it. The daily for this episode is called Ball Control, which, by the way, I've been watching that. I mentioned it in episode 1. There's a show that Johnny Bananas is on called it's called House of Villains. And it's got all the people it's got a bunch of people throughout the history of reality TV shows that have proven themselves to be quite devious individuals, whether it be because they want to cause chaos, see the suffering of others, or there's just people who know how to ham it up for the camera and make life miserable for everybody around them. Plus, they know how to wheel and deal their way to winning in certain challenges. So he's on that show, and the first challenge of that show is also named Ball Control. It is very different. There's these giant inflatable balls with the faces of each competitor on it. In the House of Villains version, there's giant inflatable balls with each competitor's face on it. If your ball gets rolled out of bounds, you are eliminated from the challenge, but you're also inspired to roll. You're also supposed to roll your opponent's ball out to eliminate them. Now, there were some alliances cracked. Omarosa, who's a pretty famous reality TV personality, just decided to stay in the middle of the field and hold on to her ball the entire time and drew a stalemate. Johnny Bananas got really tired of like standing around because nobody else was moving after like the weaker people had been picked off or whatever. He decides to broker a deal with Omarosa to keep himself out of elimination. So if you want to find out how that worked out for him, go check out House of Villains. I think it's like an E-Entertainment show or something. So probably is produced by Ryan Seacrest. Anyway, we're still in the control phase of the game. Our next daily challenge, the daily, is called Ball Control. So I actually accidentally described this one in episode 1 instead of what the actual challenge was. Now I'm doing the proper description. Imagine slightly open water. I say slightly, I want to say like a quarter mile to half a mile off the coast. Off of the beach for the competitors. There is a suspension rig holding up a platform that has a tube down the middle of it. And on the side of said platform, there are 2 ropes that have carabiners to be able to lock into different places. There are, once again, there's 23 people left in the house, right? Only one person has been eliminated. That's Jessica. Shout out to Jessica for going out there and trying her hardest. I'm sure she did, but she's gone now. 23 people have to figure out how to get to a collection of balls that are in the water, corralled inside of like a water corral, which is like basically a giant circle buoy, and the balls are inside the little circle. Those are further off from where the ropes are at. You have to swim out there, bring the balls back over to the rope, get those to the top, onto the platform, down the tube, and every one that you get down the tube is worth $2,000. Now the problem is that each one of the balls has a name on it, and based on the name that's on the ball, that's the only person that can put that ball in the tube and have it count as money for the team. So eventually you have to work on building a human ladder up to the top of this platform and then get all of your teammates to the top of said platform so that they can put their balls down the tube to get 100% of the money, which I think what is it, 23,000 times, or 23 times 2,000, $48,000. No, $46,000. Somehow that was supposed to add up to like 5,000 or 50,000. I don't know how. Anyway, each one of the balls is worth a certain amount of money. So even if they don't win, they can add money to even if they don't get 100% of the balls in the tube, which, spoiler alert, they don't. This is the second full team event ever. Is the second challenge in this season as well. It is interesting what happens because it has some shades of everything that happened in the first one while adding some new wrinkles to it. This is actually like one of the more difficult challenges I've ever seen on the show overall. This platform is, like I said, over semi-open water, and it's pretty high off the ground. Like, if you get a chance to watch the episode, obviously I would hope that you've watched the episode rather than listening to my reaction to the episode, but it's suspended pretty high. They have to click the carabiners on their vest into the carabiners that are on the rope, and once they do that, they can kind of just hang on the rope the entire time. Anyway, they start off with the initial struggle of trying to figure out who's supposed to be at the bottom. There's a big suggestion that it be a lighter person so that the heavier people can get to the top of the rope, and then those heavier people somehow magically are better at climbing. Yeah, so let's talk about the challenge of this whole thing. So the challenge is the part where we talk about the actual hurdles to being successful in this challenge overall. So number one, people, right? The ideas that people were shooting out, they had to have like a vote, which, by the way, them reducing it down to a vote is actually pretty impressive. They did not do that in the first one. They got together, they came up with a bunch of different options, and they said option 1 or option 2. And then Michelle like summarizes what the plan is in the water. Don't know how well they executed either one of those options. We'll point out this rope was pretty stiff. It was also super stiff when there was a person on the bottom of it. And like I said before, on the third part of the challenge, and this was the rope climbing form, there is a technique, and I'm sure there's somebody who was on the who's in this who's a CrossFitter. Like there has to be somebody whose background or like their training is CrossFit, and CrossFit has like a, not CrossFit specifically, but in general, there are people like when it comes to rope climbing, which CrossFit does on a regular basis, they have a technique where you you serpentine the rope between your feet, and it creates a miniature handhold, and you pull yourself up, almost like making a step using your feet. And you do that all the way to the top, which difficult to do in the water, but better than what we saw a lot of other people doing, which was like trying to step on their teammates to get to the top of this. And if they found out that their teammates weren't tall enough to get to the top carabiner or whatever, they pushed them they would be like, all right, you're going to jump off and we're going to send somebody else taller up to the top. And they're like 1, 2, 3. And they literally did this to Nerys. She gets pushed into the water away from the rope so she doesn't land on anyone, which is smart in and of itself. But the bigger issue is definitely being in a huddle in open water. There was multiple times where like people had to get propped up to get onto the rope on other people's shoulders, and so they had Horacio out there, right? Horacio was the person that people were jumping on or stepping on the shoulders of to get onto the rope to get higher, and he was just like getting dunked under the water, and it sucks. I've been there before when you're like in the water with a person that's panicked, and they're actually doing an excellent job of getting both of you killed. Shout out to my cousin Brittany. Anyway, rope climbing form was a huge deal because obviously there's a very wide array of athletes, if you will, on this show, and a lot of them don't have like in their bag, oh man, like if I'm ever faced in a situation where I have to climb a rope, which technique do I use, right? Like that's not what most people who work out in the gym on a regular basis come up with that technique. That's just not a thing. Open water is always a big factor. It erodes away your conditioning a lot faster because the tide itself is affecting your ability. The tide, the way the water is moving, the wind that day, and the temperature of the water affect how long you can withstand the elements, which the water is one of the biggest elements on Earth. And combined with like the cold, the water, even if it wasn't the high tide in terms of like the surf being pretty bad or anything like that, or it being choppy, it's still like you get, if you sit in one spot in this water, you will slowly drift away from where you were at, and you have to fight to stay in the general vicinity. Now, like I said, there's 2 different ropes. Only one of the teams figures out how to get to the top of the human ladder rope. There's a moment where Chauncey is at the top or near the top of the rope, and he can't click his carabiner in or whatever because he can't hold himself up long enough to be able to click it in, or he's not tall enough. One of the 2 things happens, and he ends up jumping into the water. And a lot of people are upset about that because he wastes a lot of time being at the top of the rope for such a long period of time trying to figure out how to do it when they could have sent somebody else up. I don't know who else they were going to send up because Chauncey's pretty tall and he's pretty strong. You know what I mean? I will point out there was one person who clearly understood the assignment, and it was Emmanuel, who, like Nerys even commented, she was like, yeah, I didn't even feel him actually touch me. And it's probably because Manuel, who has a lot of like parkour gymnastics background, knows how to actually climb a rope, right? Like he's climbed a rope multiple times over, so it's not as big a deal. And what really comes out of it is the group that's on the left-hand side of the platform over here, or left-hand side of the platform over here, they get all the way to the top, and they get Colleen, who's one of the smaller people on the team and also like one of the smarter people as well, and also one of the stronger people. They get her all the way to the top. They start conveyor belting the balls all the way to the top. They fill up the location where you can hold the balls until the people get there to put them in. They fill all the balls up, they get them all the way to the top, and then they start working on getting the people over the top as well. They get to Melissa, who, if you're not familiar with, I think she left one of her seasons early because she found out she was pregnant while she was on set, and she's now back. Her daughter is like 3 years old or something like that. So shout out to her. She's back for the first time in a long time. She didn't win her season, the 2 seasons she was on before, but nonetheless, Melissa gets to the top. She freaks out about falling off of the rope being so high because you have to unhook from your carabiner, and at one point you have to hold yourself up on the rope. Her teammates are trying to like pull her onto the platform and she won't let them, which is a number, like there's so many various amounts of fears that get involved with challenges where you're on a platform suspended over water. Like there's people who are just afraid of open water, who are tired, who don't think they can swim. There are people who are afraid to dive into water. There are people who are just afraid of being really high off the ground and not feeling a sense of safety, which the carabiner felt like a sense of safety at some point, I'm sure, for Melissa, and it just didn't, when she got to the top, when she had to unhook it. That understandable. Anyway, the time expires. Melissa's at the top. They could have got Melissa's balls into the chute, but Melissa was too afraid to let go of the rope, and they end up losing money again. $50,000, 40 whatever money I said, $46,000 down the drain. Right, $46,000 never to be seen again, as far as we know right now. Right. That was the tough part when it was all said and done, that it felt like they got the hard part of the objective done, and it was somebody's fear, because if they had known that Melissa was going to be afraid, they could have just like told Melissa, hey, guess what? For the sake of getting other people up the rope, we're just not going to let you go up. Like, you may be lighter, but if you're not going to let go of the rope when you get to the top, we need to like move on to a person who is willing to make the jump over to the platform. And the jump is not that long. There was also like 3 other people on the platform who were ready to catch her when she let go of the rope, which is something that those 3 people didn't necessarily have the benefit of, right? So the whole team is trying to go up one rope, and Melissa's holding everybody else up from being able to dunk their balls or whatever, and there's plenty of people who were more than willing to, I'm sure, jump across onto the platform, so it kind of cost them in that situation when it was all said and done. That was tough to see. That was tough. So the winner, no one. Again, second week in a row, team event. These team events really not working out well for them. I will say they did a lot better on this one than they did the first one, but as you all know, now that they know the elimination format, they're going to start trying to angle to kind of, make sure that we know who did well and who did not do well, a.k.a. Huey, immediately when they got onto land, was like, oh, I did pretty well. How'd you guys feel you did? Huey was not a part of the ladder group that made it to the top. I think he was a part of the group that abandoned their rope ladder on the right-hand side to go to the group that was on the left, and because they had already gotten the rope ladder done or whatever. But yeah, these are the votes, and we'll talk about that a little bit later on, because there is actually a club scene in this one, and it's actually on that one. There we go. So everybody goes back to the house. Huey makes a joke about how, I feel like today was a good day. I got to climb over all the guys I wanted to today. Which, hey, cool, Huey. Huey's an interesting fellow. Apparently his social game in the house is like killer. He's got people attached to him, despite the fact that they're like, he's annoying, but I love having him around. I'm like, that's a unique space to exist in. I can see that for Huey, though. I can see that he seems like an actually genuine, real person. It's just that he's also like loud boy. He's just a genuinely loud talking person. I think he's just one of those people very similar to myself. His natural voice level is super high. The club scene, once again, nobody in the club with the competitors. That time is long gone, I guess. If you don't remember, or if you're new to the challenge, they used to take the entire cast of the club, and the cast would like go into like gin pop area with the club. They would be like dancing on random people from in the town that they were in for the show. And there was like one incident, I think Bananas like went to the bathroom and a bunch of dudes tried to jump him, and he like knocked out 3 dudes, and he was like, hey, we gotta go. I just fought 3 dudes in the bathroom, and I think one of them needs to go to the hospital. And I'm like, yo, Bananas, what happened? And they're like, yeah, I just beat up 3 dudes in the bathroom. They tried to attack me, and they just like, everybody was like, he went to the bathroom right before they went to get on the bus, and he left. And I'm pretty sure that's the last time that they had the whole group go to the club. Also considering I'm gonna be honest, the average age is probably a lot older. Like there used to not be quote unquote veteran players in the game up until like relatively recently. Like there's people who are on the show who are like 40. Like Bananas is 40, Darrell is over 40 years old, and now this is like a younger crew or whatever, but there are still people who have been on previous seasons and they know not to get too lit. They know not to get too turned the fuck up because they're still in a very delicate state in terms of like, hey man, like these people say that they like me, but they don't know drunk me. Might be slightly annoying, especially if I'm not coming to bed until like 4 o'clock in the morning. I'll wake everybody up in the process of doing that. There's a scene where in the club, we talked about this before. Jay seems to have instructed himself to be the ringleader of a bunch of people. His alliance seems to be all the dudes plus Asif and Huey. All the American guys. I meant to say all the American guys. Because somehow, I don't know who put this in Jay's head. Maybe somebody else did, or maybe this is actually like a genuine thing that they thought throughout the show. Jay took it upon himself to be like, hey, I don't know if you guys noticed this or not. It's split down the middle. Like there's 50% American dudes and there's 50% international guys. Same thing with the ladies. There's 24 total competitors and there's 12 people who are American. There's 12 people who are international. There's a potential that could become a factor later on. There's probably not a coincidence that it's literally 50-50. There's a potential that this could become a thing later on. There's also, let's be real, there's a percentage chance that somebody in production may have tipped off or like hinted at this at one point, and the players in the game are like running with it, and it adds an extra wrinkle because it's just another technical alliance that you have to think about when it comes to like casting votes against certain people, because now there are people who may be slightly annoying to you that you don't want in the house anymore, but you need them for numbers, because at some point, if you believe they're going to split the teams into two of Team USA versus Team World, which would make this War of the Worlds 3 one of the favorite formats for a lot of people, because there's a lot of cool people who came out of War of the Worlds, including if you're a big CT fan, CT won the most recent War of the Worlds. There hasn't been one for a while. There is, I guess it's on the table that this is secretly War of the Worlds or something like that, even though it's called Battle for a New Champion. And anyway, Jay is holding court in the club, I guess drinking. I don't know if Jay drinks. He probably doesn't. Another person that's slowly gotten more annoying as time has gone on, I'm going to be honest with you. For me personally, he's gotten more annoying because I felt like people were picking on him to begin with, and now he's trying to be like the genius, trying to be the tactical mastermind, if you will, as I like to say in some cases. Anyway, they're having a conversation about how elimination should go, how there's a 0% chance that everybody's going to be able to avoid elimination at some point. I thought that was an interesting way to take it out, and as of now, Jay being a ringleader is a real thing. Like, he's got a big alliance, and he's trying to deceive a lot of people at one time. Don't know how that's going to pan out for him when it's all said and done. But I don't think Jay's learned his lesson just yet. But I also question whether or not this group of people is going to be able to garner enough power to be able to make Jay pay for, once again, doing the same thing that he did last season, but with less savvy vets in the house, right? He's one of the most, I think he is the most experienced person in the challenge for this season. So he is the vet, right? There's also this other random thing that happens, and I get it. Let's be real. There's a lot of random shit that happens throughout the course of a challenge season. The house madness is not something that's normal for people to have going on with them. By the way, Burna, top of the list for people with the house madness. If you don't know what that is, it's the people who their mental stability slowly erodes to the point where they do not trust anyone at all. So Burna is in a situation where, she still trusts Michelle as of now. I'm sure she doesn't trust her as much because Berna thought she was going to be able to ruin Michelle. Michelle didn't let that happen, right? That's a problem for her. But for the most part, like when it comes to this kind of stuff, man, these people kind of like this erodes away at their mental state in terms of like who they can trust, what conversations they have with people, what they talk about when they have conversations with people. They start eating with people by themselves. They start working out alone. They stop talking to people as much, and it affects their social game. And then when they do talk, it's like off the handle. Like it's annoying. It's erratic. It's chaotic, and it makes people nervous about like whether or not they can even trust this person, because this person is kind of like all over the place. And House Madness is something that happens every season to, I would say, most players when it's all said and done. Typically players that don't necessarily have a defined alliance, and Berna is a prime example of it right now. She's got Huey on her side, and she's got, as of now, Michelle. I don't believe Michelle's actually her friend. Anyway, this weird thing happens in the club. They do this sometimes where like they get around a group of people, or like they get around two people who've been hanging out, and they kind of like try and spur them on and make them, try and get them to make out and all that kind of stuff like that. That's for TV, right? That's also just like people doing shit because they're bored in the house because they can't like sit around and watch TV all day. I'm sure they would love to watch movies. They have to spend all day talking back and forth, trying to figure out how to play this game, working out, eating, cooking, cleaning, all that kind of stuff like that, waiting for something to happen. And, you get entertained by like the smallest things, like getting people to make out that have been hanging out. And those two people were Melissa and Kylan. Kylan is a guy from Big Brother, from what I understand. And Melissa is the aforementioned young lady who was cheering super hard for Big T, who is a single mother. And they end up somehow on like this higher spot in the bar. Like there's the section of the bar that they have that's roped off and it's like a private section for everybody in the show, is got like a stage area. They end up on it and everybody's chanting for them to kiss, all this kind of stuff. Kylan doesn't want to do it. Kylan, the guy, doesn't want to kiss her. Melissa gets upset about it because she's just like, how dare you disrespect me in front of all these people? All these guys in this house would love to be able to kiss me right now and make out. And like, all I want is a kiss from you and you won't give it to me. And it's just like, some people don't like PDA. You don't like PD. Like some people don't like PDA. Some people do like it. And it's kind of like, that's one of the big things to talk about when you're going to be in a relationship with someone, like whether or not they like those type of things. And if you're comfortable compromising yourself personally to make that happen for them, if you're not a person who likes that kind of thing. So that conversation comes up. She kind of gets upset, like they've been in a relationship for like 5 years and they've probably known each other for like a couple weeks at this point or something. Anyway, that happens. Kylan talks about how he has an autism diagnosis after his time spent on Big Brother, which I honestly believe it would get somebody interested in terms of like how they socially interact when they go into an environment like Big Brother, where social interaction is required and highly intensified into a shortened period of time, right? Which is why showmances happen all the time. Like everything is super condensed in an area where like you're already like you are talking about trying to flirt with somebody and hook up with somebody that lives 10 feet away from you. And all you got to do is like walk over there and talk to them and stuff like that. So it kind of accelerates a process that usually takes people weeks, months, years to get to. Not years, but months to get to, because you're only around each other. You see, like you're essentially living with each other. It accelerates that part as well. You learn stuff about people that you wouldn't normally learn because they can't be like, oh, hold on, I'm gonna go over here and like talk and hang out with my friend, or I'm gonna go over here and watch this movie, all this kind of shit like that. Kylan talks about how after Big Brother he was diagnosed that he's on the spectrum for autism in some way, shape, or form, whatever that may be. And he says that one of the ways that it presents itself is that he does not like public displays of affection, which I think a lot of people, even if you're not on the spectrum, can relate to. Like, some people just don't like kissing their girlfriend in public, don't like kissing their boyfriend in public, whatever it may be, their significant other, their partner, all that. They don't like doing that. They don't like holding hands, all that kind of stuff like that. Like, some people it comes out corny. Some people, they don't like the way it feels. Some people just don't enjoy it. And that's totally okay. You just need to know that your partner enjoys it, and maybe you got to do it sometimes, or maybe you just don't do it at all. You know what I mean? She simmers down by the time they get back to the house, and they're both like sleeping in the same bed. By the way, one of those moments, once again, I asked the question: are the twin beds mental warfare by production? How many of these people, just the competitors themselves, like fit in these twin beds? You know what I mean? Like, they're probably comfortable, but at the same time, it's like there's limited space. Some of these people are taller than 6 feet tall, which if you're taller than 6 feet, you can't sleep on a twin bed, right? Like, you can sleep on a twin bed, but your feet will be over the edge, whatever it may be, all that kind of shit. That's like a real thing. As a person who had as a person who went to college and was over 6 feet and is over 6 feet. So, or I'm sorry, I'm 5'11" and 3/4, and I still had a tough time sleeping on a twin bed when I was in college. It was not fun. She chills out a little bit when they get back to the house, and in her diary entries, it kind of hints at hyperfixation from Kylan. She talks about how Kylan never stops talking about game. Like, she's trying to like cuddle with him and like escape the situation that they're in, because apparently the house is like super, like your anxiety gets put on 10 constantly, because you're just wondering, like, is somebody cutting a deal right now? Is somebody trying to like set me up for failure in this next challenge? Can I trust the people that I believe I can trust? And when you're dealing with somebody who's in the game and you're just talking about like your relationship, right? Like, that's why showmancers are so messed up in so many different ways, where it's like, hey man, like, you're only with this person because like you're not even like, you're like somewhat interested in them as a human being, but you know that you're not like really into them. And so you end up in a situation like Nelson and Berna, where like Nelson thought it was like for real, and Berna was like, what are you talking about? Anyway, she doesn't like the person that Nelson was. She didn't like the person that Nelson was outside of the game, is what she said. Yeah. Anyway, you can say a lot of things about Nelson. Somebody else can tell you. Look him up. Maybe stick around for 2 seasons from now, and you can see Nelson, because he's not going to be on the champion season and probably season 40. So, like I said before, Kylan talks about the game constantly, and Melissa doesn't seem to like that all that much. And it comes off like hyperfixation, because like if somebody tells you they don't like you talking about the game all the time, you kind of like drift away from talking about it or whatever. Once again, psychological ploy, twin beds. I think it's mental warfare by production to make bad things happen. By the way, bad things. Raven and Nerys are on this season. If you remember from season 38, they were both really obsessed with this one guy. Well, I take that back. Raven, who, by the way, is also in a destroying YouTube video where they do like women's sport Olympics, and he takes like a bunch of IG models, and it took me like 10 minutes into the show to be like, holy crap, that is Raven from the challenge. And anyway, Raven and Nerys are back. They were both into this one dude. I think his name was Johnny. He's like this handsome looking black dude. And they came onto the show. Raven and Johnny came onto the show together because they were like in a quote-unquote situationship. Johnny says that they were never in a relationship, and Raven says they were, because based off of like what she says, all this kind of stuff like that. Nerys eventually ends up with Johnny for some extended period of time, and then they break up because Nerys is currently with Horacio, according to the IG stuff, according to the challenge's IG, which is interesting that they posted a photo of them together and simply captioned it "hard launch." Very weird. She's trying to, Raven's trying to defend Chauncey. All the girls, Chauncey, this is so weird, because this is where the episode starts getting weird. This is where the episode starts drifting into the thing. Anyway, she's trying to defend Chauncey, who was one of the many people who couldn't clip his carabiner into the ladder, but for some reason is taking the brunt of the blame, because even Nerys, who got, like I said before, Nerys got like pushed off the ladder because she wasn't tall enough to clip in her carabiner or whatever. The distance from standing on one person to the next carabiner was too big for her. And so they like pushed her off the ladder so she didn't land on her own teammates or whatever. And apparently like they're holding that against Chauncey, like he sabotaged the team or something like that, and it progressively gets weirder and weirder from here because it comes off like an excuse for some reason. Anyway, they Nerys calls Raven weird for defending Chauncey, which is weird because that's called loyalty. Nerys just isn't an alliance or just isn't an ally of Chauncey as a person, and Nerys wants all of the season 38 girls to be aligned on who they're voting for when it comes to deliberation, and she says the only outlier is Raven because she's being weird. But yeah, there are like I said before, there are multiple people who couldn't lock their carabiners in, and for some reason we're all focusing on the big black guy who couldn't do it. There are multiple times where they question his intelligence throughout the course of this episode, which rubs me the wrong way. Like literally every step of the way, they're like, "Ah, man, he's not like all that bright. Ah, man, he's not super smart." Even when he is in, even later in the episode, there's multiple people who are like, "Oh man, he was dumb for making that move," and it's like nobody else gets called not smart on this show. As much as I've heard, it was something like, it's one thing for one person to say it, but it was like every single person who had a diary entry, they just questioned Chauncey's intelligence. And I was like, I don't think you know him enough to be able to question his intelligence. And it's kind of weird that that's the default for you. And then and there's another thing that comes up later where they talk about like, oh man, yeah, he's got like an athletic build, but I don't think he's like got the brain to figure out how to win this certain thing. So, yeah. So this is where that starts up, where people start people start saying Chauncey's name for elimination and all this kind of stuff like that. Then we start kind of getting a glimpse at another alliance group, like we said before, the season 38 Ride or Die, the girls, Jay's ringleader group, which he describes, and then there's the alliances between the men and the women. Just like the men and all the women, because that's how eliminations are getting decided, right? Deliberation starts up. Huey, from what we see in the edit, opens up deliberation with the speech about how he ain't no bitch, and if you're gonna say his name, say his fucking name. He's ready to go to war. He doesn't give a shit what you think about him, and he's not here to beg and plead for you not to put him into elimination. He's here to send you home, which I respect a lot. Especially to start off the season early. We've already seen so many people try and beg and get people to not vote for him and all this kind of stuff like that. Huey's like, yeah, man, if you vote for me, make sure you got your bags packed too. So that seemingly gets everybody off his scent, especially compared to Huey coming into deliberation being one of the two primary names being said, right? The other name being Chauncey. So Chauncey, in comparison to Huey, Chauncey has an all-timer in terms of all-time cringiest, worst deliberations in the history of the challenge. Chauncey goes with this rhetoric tactic, art of persuasion tactic, where he's going to go around and he's going to ask everybody about how loyal he is. And he thinks he's going to get, oh yeah, this guy is super loyal and trustworthy. You should keep him around because he's a person that you can believe in. He starts off by asking the man who was in elimination 7 times last season in Horacio, who, if you're Chauncey, this guy was in elimination. At some point, everybody has a hand in putting him in elimination, right? Including Chauncey. And unlucky for Chauncey, Horacio has the memory of an athlete. AKA, he never forgets anybody who crosses him. And he remembered almost immediately. He's like, Chauncey turns around, he's like, Horacio, have I ever given a reason for you not to trust me? Because Chauncey's only been on there for 1 season, so he's going to ask everybody on his season to prove to the people who have never worked with him that he's trustworthy. He's like, have I given you a reason not to trust me? He's like, to be honest, Horacio says, to be honest with you, You told me you weren't going to say my name, and then you said my name in elimination one time because everybody else was saying it, and you just said my name. Let that be a lesson, kids. Don't be a coward. Think for yourself. He says that, and then everybody's laughing at Chauncey, which is kind of weird because there's a lot of people who said a lot of dumb things on the challenge. I don't think I've ever seen people openly laugh at somebody else. Chauncey's like, oh, no, I knew he was going to say that. That's why I asked him first. Now, Michelle. And then Michelle, one of the big, Michelle, once again, shows why she's one of the biggest snakes in this entire game. He didn't ask Michelle. She flips up and says she broke her neck to protect Chauncey and Amber last season, right? In season 38, Ride or Dies, where everybody got to pick their partner they brought into the game. And then she was like, you flipped up, like, she's like, you betrayed me and Jay, you betrayed Jay and me because when we tried to protect you, you didn't try and help us. They also failed to mention, which we can all go back and check, in season 38, they made it very clear that they thought Amber and Chauncey were dead weight. And actually, you can check the film, Michelle and Jay were plotting against their own alliance member in Chauncey and Amber to send them into elimination. They called them dead weight. And then Jay had some comments about Amber, about like something like he's just so pissed at her all the time because she's a dirty snake. They brought it up on Twitter because none of us are blind. For some, like I said in episode 1, for some reason, everybody wants Amber to be the villain, even though they do all the messed up stuff to her. Everybody wants Chauncey to be a part. Everybody wants Chauncey to look like he disloyal, but they going after him. Anyway, I just thought it was weird how she pointed out that Chauncey and Amber didn't help her out when they had a chance to be able to. They had a chance to help her out, even though they found out that after the fact, Jay and Michelle, they was talking shit about him, and they were trying to put him into elimination. Once again, conveniently forget all that stuff, right? Conveniently forget all that stuff. I remember it vividly because I thought it was weird. Anyway, don't trust Michelle, don't trust Jay ever. So good luck to everybody that's in this alliance. Another example of why challenge competitors are right about Survivor competition. So weird. So weird. Let's talk about the elimination. So it comes down to it. They got to say some names. People got to say some names, ladies and gentlemen. They get into the elimination arena. They start having conversations. And the votes get a little weird. A lot of people say Chauncey's name. Chauncey has a conversation with a bunch of people about whether or not you want to be the person that gets voted in and then thus get to call out your opponent, or if you want to be the person that gets called out. So there's also another rumor going around that Kylan starts. Also in the process, Kylan snitches on Raven for having gone to Team UK and telling them that there's 100% chance that if you vote Chauncey in, he's going to go for a UK guy. And their plan was to... Their whole thing was like... Oh, man, what is it? Their plan was... Kylan put this idea out there in the world, which I get like where the logic comes from. But his whole thing was like, what if... we don't actually know too much about how the eliminations shut down and how the eliminations work. So we don't know if Jessica, who got voted in unanimously 23-1, got to pick her opponent from any woman that was on the stage because she voted, because all 12 of the women voted for her, or all 11 of the women voted for her. We don't know if you vote for the person, that also makes you eligible to be selected by the person that you voted in for elimination, right? That's what his argument is, which is where the votes for James and the votes for Kieran come from. They're from each other. So the Team UK guys voted for each other so to make sure that like Chauncey could not pick them for elimination, and it kept them out of Chauncey's like crosshairs or whatever. And I guess they just didn't tell the other UK guys about that or something, or they just didn't believe it based off the way that TJ said it. And good reason they voted. Chauncey gets to pick out of any dude on the stage. It doesn't matter if they voted for him or not. Chauncey picks James, who is a huge motherfucker. People keep calling Chauncey not very smart, and it's really fucking weird. They call him not smart for picking James because of his size. And then all the people from the U.S. are like, oh, wait, that actually makes a lot of sense because this looks like it's a speed-based challenge, and Chauncey has strength, speed, and endurance over James. They know that Chauncey is significantly better than James in every single aspect. People are in awe of him picking James, who is taller, but doesn't look like he's stronger than Chauncey, like we mentioned before. And we move right on into the elimination, folks. Let's get weird. Oh, that's not the elimination. There it is. This week's elimination is called Might Light. Instead of Nightlight, get it? There are these light tubes or light cylinders that each competitor gets, and they're basically playing Connect 3 on 3 boards at the same time. And the only way to claim a spot, and you don't have to drop it in, you have to go slide it into the slot and you claim that spot. Your objective is to get as many pairs of 3, and so they're not in a perfect rectangle. It's is that a rhombus? When it's slightly slanted like this, it's like in a rhombus or whatever, and it creates like some weird angles where you can have one light that creates 2 pairs of 3. And let me just say it like this: a lot of people, once again, try and lean into the whole like Chauncey's not smart thing, and it's kind of fucking weird. And they keep, in this challenge, it's a combination of speed because it's not time-based. It's over when the last person puts their last light into the slot, and all the lights fill up all the slots. So at some point, you might be wasting pieces and not be able to get a pair of 3. You can block the opponent, and you can push the opponent out of their spot. At one point, James and Chauncey are trying to put a light in the same spot, and Chauncey, they're pushing on both ends, and Chauncey pushes James's piece out while James is just fucking dying. The first 2 rounds, James wins by a combined, I want to say 7. He combines together to win, and as you can tell, one, James is getting tired. 2, Chauncey is picking up the game a lot faster, and James started off pretty strong. I think it was like 6-3 was the first round. He started off pretty strong, kept it going, faded hard in second and third round. The third round, Chauncey wins by 6, and he ends up losing by 1. Combination of 3, and he gets eliminated. So it was pretty tough, and for some reason, James in the diary room, I'm sure this is like, you got to cut a promo, right? You win elimination by 1 combination, and he cuts a promo, and he's just like, well, the best guy won. What's the problem? So for all the, I guess the dummy's not that dumb. So that was the frustrating part about it, and yeah, so Chauncey gets eliminated by 1 in elimination. It happens all the time. It was a good elimination. I do like that elimination format. I thought that was pretty clever, especially because it kind of has like a little physical aspect to it in terms of like first come, first serve. But if you can force that person, if you're both making contact with the light and you can force the other person's light out, you get that spot. It's very clever. And it takes a combination of speed, getting back and forth to your speed, getting back and forth to your light, and it takes cardio, obviously, because you need to have the quickness to be able to get back and forth, and the wherewithal while your heart rate is super high to know exactly where to place the pieces so that you can set yourself up for success later on. Making a Connect 3 instead of Connect 4 adds a different aspect to it because it actually changes. If you're a really good Connect 4 player, making a Connect 3 actually makes it slightly easier, but the way that the board was shaped made it more difficult because it was an unconventional shape for the board. So pretty good overall. I hope they bring that one back. I'm sure they will in some way, shape, or form, probably in the final. But yeah, Chauncey picks it up towards the end. After the third round, he wins 1, but he lost the first 2 rounds, but he dominated so hard in the third one, they only lost by 1. It was pretty good. It was pretty good. TJ was very unenthusiastic about announcing the scores, so that was that. People were yelling to help out Chauncey. It wasn't like he was out there by himself, but after it was all over, James was like, yeah, we just eliminated Team USA's most fit guy out there or whatever. After he kind of called him dumb at one point during one of the diary entries or whatever. Anyway, stuff I learned after the fact. Ashley was pretty fucking pissed. She tweeted out, like, can't wait to watch all these people who betrayed my boyfriend and got him eliminated, who were his so-called friends. And what is it? So they also commented, Amber commented on it, and Chauncey did too, where after he got eliminated, he was just like, I'm never gonna talk, like, he's like, I'm probably just never gonna talk to Michelle ever again. She essentially lied in that deliberation by withholding a massive part of the truth, where it made her look like a bad person, because not only did she plot against Chauncey and Amber for their elimination, but she also, like, said some pretty vile stuff about Amber as a person, despite the fact that Amber is a significantly better competitor than Michelle. They're also supposed to be friends, and they're really not, I guess. And this is another example of, like, this is a person who thought she was friends with Michelle, and then when things got tough, all of a sudden Michelle's nowhere to be found, right? Don't know Michelle as a person, as in regards to the game. She got a really weird pattern that I think a lot of people are going to pick up on. Hopefully they already have. But those people in the house currently, I'm sure they don't know the complete story. It's only a couple of people that probably know the full story. Don't know how many of them actually watch the show. But if you're Horacio and you're Olivia, you probably know what actually happened with the Chauncey and Amber story. And I have a strange feeling, based off last season, Chauncey and Olivia probably don't want to get themselves mixed up with Jay and Michelle, because one, they can beat them, like, straight up. If it worst comes to worst, they can beat them, and then two, like, what benefit do they really have? Like, they usually don't win the daily challenges, right? So, like, what benefit do they really have, like, as an alliance member? But who knows? They may be all band together because they were on season 38 together. Hopefully they're smart and they're just cool with Nerys, because Olivia, Nerys, and Horacio is a pretty good trio right there. That if you're smart, you try and hang out with those people because they're upfront and they're honest about how they feel, and they're actually competitors who have a chance to win every single time there's a daily challenge. So, stuff I learned in research. I learned, I did not know this. Amber is 35 and Chauncey is 24. Did not know that. Apparently, also, Chauncey be on that OnlyFans, baby. Apparently, he top 1% in OnlyFans. I don't know how recently he started or anything like that, but he's a fitness dude. I don't know if you've seen Chauncey, like, in real life or whatever, or on Instagram. Dude's shredded. Dude's jacked. And he wants everybody to know it. You know what I mean? He gotta go out here and make it happen. He got a daughter to take care of and a house to buy for him and his I guess soon to be wife. I don't know. Anyway, that plus, like I said, didn't know Chauncey was on OnlyFans. I think a lot of people, especially now that you don't have to be, like, in Playboy or anything like that, there was some stuff where, like, there were some old photos of the challenge gals or the road rules gals who were, was it Cosmopolitan or they were in magazines and they were kind of like in lingerie and stuff like that. Now you can just start your OnlyFans and people want to see it. Like, Olivia has an OnlyFans, and I can see why people pay to see her. I can see why people pay to see Chauncey. I can see why people pay to see anybody on the challenge, especially, you know, they want to see, they probably want to see you with other people from the challenge as well. You know what I mean? So, and he charges $30 a month. You know, he out here trying to pay that mortgage real quick. You know what I mean? That's it. Oh, Chauncey left 2 days after his daughter was born to go be on the show. That's it. That's pretty much it. Now we're down to 22. It's even across the board. It is even in terms of men and women. It is 20. What is it? It's 22 people in total. 12 men. Or that's it, right? 24. Yeah, it's 11. 11 men, 11 women, 11 USA competitors, 11 international competitors. So at the end of this episode, TJ says that when my counter hits 0, chaos will ensue. And on the counter, it says 5 days. I don't know if that's like 5 real-time days or if they're just like the next episode. It's when it starts, and then they show a quick cut to CT and Laurel and Derek and Bananas and Cara Marie. Big problems coming because this house is already pretty divided to start off with, and I can tell you right now, if there's a way that they can pick and choose who they affect, it's gonna be bad news. Like CT and Bananas, I'm sure Cara Marie knows as well. I'm sure Laurel knows as well because Laurel was on the season last year. They know not to fuck with Horacio. So they know not to fuck with Olivia. They know not to fuck with Nerese. I don't know about them other people. They probably, I mean, Laurel got beef with Michelle. If we forget about that, don't forget, I wonder if Laurel still has beef with Horacio over that lady that he ended up breaking up with. Anyway, look. They know who not to go at, man. They know they can sniff out the weak links pretty quick here, and then who knows in what capacity they're going to be affecting the game. That's the interesting part to me. It's cool that they're going to be there, but I'm wondering, like, are they all going to is it one by one? Are they going to be affecting elimination? Are they going to be affecting gameplay? Are they going to be affecting the daily challenge? Who knows, man. Anyway, I'm out of here. I've recorded 2 podcasts in a row, and my nose is not happy about it. I'm out of here. Y'all stay safe. Wash your hands, wash your ass. Most importantly, go home, Roger. I'm walking the bull, out for the